Welcome to the premiere of Briskie Business. I gotta tell you, this is an unusual time to start a show. I'm wondering if it should be Briskie Business or Risky Business right now. Crazy time to start or even be living in these times. Are you under stay-at-home order? Are you under furlough? Are you having any struggles with the virus? Are you well? These questions are inciting a lot of fear in a lot of people's hearts. I do love the quote. You can't help but watch the news these days, and you see this Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci. And they said at a granular level of the DNA in our cells, we are all very, very similar and have a whole lot more in common than we have differences. Sometimes we can forget this and focus on what drives us apart. And it's times like this, I'm looking for ways to bring us together. And for me, that connection, for me right now, it's going to be Briskie Business on NTV USA. So let's get started. And when I start things off, I like to take a breath. So take a breath with me and you know what? Enjoy a cup of your favorite coffee. That is a great way to connect. So the Briskie Business Show, it's going to appear every Wednesday. It's going to be unique and exhilarating, and we're going to learn how to integrate business with this thing that we call life. The goal of the platform is to help our viewership accelerate the process and learn how to be better business people. We're going to have lessons that will help you avoid the common traps. And I wish when I was a young man, I had someone to help me avoid all of those mistakes I made as a young entrepreneur, especially when I first came out of school. You see, I started my first business when I was 26 years old. I graduated from Fordham University. I really had things going. I thought I had the world at my hand. And 3 years after getting a few jobs, I decided it was time for me to be an entrepreneur. I've taken 3 companies public, one on the Hong Kong. I've taken 2 public here, and I brought one up on the NASDAQ. And I did all that without the use of an investment banker. Some people would probably say that's a little crazy, but I'm a risk taker, but I calculate risks. And that's what I want to help you do with this show. I want to help you take risk, but I want them to be calculated. I want to help you avoid those mistakes. I tell you about my background not to impress you. I'm really not trying to do that. I want to talk about wisdom. You hear about business wisdom. For me, that wisdom came from making mistakes. I strongly believe that's where wisdom is born. If you screw up, you have a chance for wisdom. And I made an awful lot of mistakes in my business career. And fortunately, those mistakes, if you can overcome them, they become wisdom. And I want to help you have that wisdom and maybe take some shortcuts to make you a better entrepreneur, to make you a better business person. Now, I believe it's not the mistakes that develop the wisdom. It's overcoming the mistakes. That's what we have to do. That is the key. So we're all going to make mistakes. It's overcoming them that makes you a better businessman. So in this show that we're about to launch, we're never going to be perfect. But we're going to cover on 4 basic segments on each show. And I use a nickname because I believe relationships are very important to name each program. And as I grew up and as I was young, right from elementary school, all of a sudden, even though my name is Dave Briskie, people started calling me Brisk. And by the time I got to high school, I was known as Brisk. And you know what? It followed my brothers around too. I had an older brother named Dan in high school. And so when I got to high school, he was Brisk, and of course I was Little Brisk. And my younger brother was also Brisk. So what better way to build a relationship to you than to use my nickname for the segments? Because that's what my friends call me. And I want to build that friendship with my audience. I want to build that friendship with you. So I want this experience to be much less formal. I've pulled off the tie. We're going to have some coffee together, and we're going to get down to the basics of business, and we're going to learn some stuff together, and we're going to have some fun along the way. I happen to be the president and CFO of a company called Longevity International. We're a NASDAQ company. We trade on YGYI. And many people hear that I'm the CFO, and they think that stands for Chief Financial Officer. And in its most stoic sense, it does. But I prefer to think of it as Chief Fun Officer. Business can be fun. It's fun to be successful, but you need to have fun along the way as well, and through those mistakes and errors. So what are the 4 segments of Briskie Business going to be? We're going to do BRISK'S Business Basics, and that's going to be starting off in business. We're again going to do BRISK'S Buy or Bail, and this is going to be how to evaluate a business opportunity. And then we're going to do BRISK'S Bulls and Bears. And this is going to be all about the public markets. Many, many people have fear of the public markets. And I'm going to teach you about the public markets, how to navigate them, what to avoid, where the opportunities might be if you're interested in the public markets. And then we're going to do BRISK'S Best and Brightest. And that's going to be all about mentorship. Really wanting to build a young audience. I'm really wanting to talk to those folks that are just getting out of school. I believe I can help mentor you, and I can help you how to get mentored in your career. And if you follow some of these principles, you're going to have a really, really joyful and successful career. And there's no reason why you can't have both. So if you have any questions week to week, or you want to ask me some things, I've created an email. So you may have segments of the program or things you want to learn. And so if you'll write me at briskiebusiness@ntvusa.com, about things you might want to hear, things you're curious about, I'll help frame the program about what you're interested in. And I think that will make for a more interesting program and a more exciting program, and one that will connect us all more together. So we're going to start with the first one, BRISK'S Business Basics. This is going to be a key piece. So what are we going to start with BRISK'S Business Basics? For me, this is about gaining that initial experience. Here you are, let's say a college student, and you're coming out of school. A lot of college kids come right out of school and they think they want to be their own boss. Not sure this is a great idea coming out of school. This is the spot where you go get your experience. Experience is absolutely critical here. But what's more critical is that you understand what you're passionate about. If you want to be successful at anything in life, you better figure out what passion is. You better figure out where your heart is. If you can tackle that, you're never going to work a day in your life. I used to say this to my children: find something you love to do and figure out how to make money doing it. If you can do that, you'll never work a day in your life. So that's the second piece in BRISK'S Business Basics. We want you to go get experience at some company. I want you to have passion about what you're doing and get started with that company. And then you're going to start to career track in that company. The most important thing you can do, besides working your butt off and getting started, is to start to gain that experience. You already are going to know you want to be an entrepreneur. I did. I knew right away that I wanted to start businesses and grow businesses. Fortunately, I started down a career path and got some necessary training in sales and marketing and learned about finance before I ventured off on my own. And I encourage you to do that. But let's say you're ready. Maybe those 3 years have gone by, or maybe you're just an early adopter and you're just ready to go. The first thing you have to do is understand that if you're going to go in business for yourself, you're going to be working 24/7. The biggest myth and the most common mistake of the young entrepreneur is that they're now going to work their own hours. Yes, that is true. Your own hours happen to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. If you're going to be successful in business at the very start, that's what it's going to take. So once you have that mindset, once you know that you can work that hard, you got to start with the business plan. And this is all through life, in every project. I have a tidbit for you. If you can't write it down, it can't be done. I meet young entrepreneurs. I meet people bringing me their business ideas. I meet people bringing me product ideas. And what they're always saying to me is, this is the coolest thing. This is the greatest idea. And I say, sounds great. Can you write it down? Can you write down your idea? Can you tell me why it's important? That's what I want to know. Can you do that? And if they can't write down that plan, their chance of success is pretty much zero. So once you do your business plan, now you get started. This is the key piece. Now we're ready to work 24/7. We have a plan that we know is going to work. We've written it down, and we start moving on down the road. And hopefully, by this point, you've figured out how you're going to finance your business. Wow, that is a pitfall for anyone that's ever gotten started in business, is starting out with not enough capital. And I can guarantee you, those would experience watching this show, if I said a show of hands, have you ever underestimated the amount of capital? It would be something like this. And I was one of those. I like to say whatever capital you think you need to start a business, you need 3 times more. Whatever you think, whatever your business plan said, whatever you wrote down, you're going to need 3 times more capital, because our business plan never accounts for the mistakes. It never accounts for that wisdom that we're ultimately going to learn. And so that is such a key piece. But where do you get capital as an early business person? Where do you get capital as a young entrepreneur? And frankly, it's friends and family. That's where most people get their early startup capital. And your friends and family, they're generous at the beginning, but they're hard to go back to. And that's why you have to plan to have the right capital. And that will take you to the next level. The most important lesson you can make in your early business career is the ability to pivot. And we are going to talk a lot about pivoting on today's show. And what do I mean by that? You start down a road, something unforeseen happens, and you have to change direction. We had to do that this week. In our coffee division, well, actually 3 weeks ago, in our coffee division, one of our largest set of customers is the cruise line business. It is a huge swath of our business. Carnival and Norwegian and companies like that. It's a big piece of our business. And unless you're sleeping out under a rock, you probably know that cruises aren't sailing right now. So what could we do? Fortunately, in our business model, when we built it, it was multidimensional in terms of revenue. We not only had a cruise line business, but we had a retail business. And we not only had a retail business, but we had a white label manufacturing business. And we also sold our own brands to market. So even though the cruise line business is not delivering for us right now, where is everybody? Where are you drinking your coffee right now? You're probably drinking it at home. And fortunately, since that's part of our model, we were able to pivot in our retail business at home in these trying times are up 400 or 500%. And because of those decisions we made to be versatile, our business is okay. We're going to be able to get through it. And so when you build your business model, be ready to pivot. Be ready to make those moves. So this segment of the program, staying with my nickname Brisk, is going to be Brisk Buys or Bail. Brisk's Buy or Bail. So what is this going to be about, buy or bail? So buy means we're going to move forward, and bail means we're going to walk away. And these are the types of decisions that are made in business every single day. If we're good at what we do, we're doing a proper analysis and we're making a decision. Buy or bail can be the decision you might be making right now on investing in a company, maybe buying their public stock. You're going to buy, or if you own it already and you don't like the way it's going, are you going to bail, or are you never going to buy in the first place? So buy or bail. But it's so much broader than just the stock market. Let's talk about a business deal, some opportunity. Opportunities come to you all the time in business. Are you going to go forward with that opportunity, or are you going to bail on that opportunity? This is the key. So other pieces, a merger perhaps. Is it the right fit? So this topic is going to be all about brisk buys or bail. So where does it start? Well, you have to evaluate the opportunity. That's the premise of it. How are we going to evaluate that opportunity? And what are the steps we're going to do? My formula has been the same formula for many, many years. I always start off with any opportunity, whether it be the purchase of a stock, whether it be the purchase of another company, whether it be a merger, an acquisition, or just a business proposition where someone is trying to sell me a large piece of equipment, perhaps. I always go to what I call the Ben Franklin. So Ben Franklin essentially is a very, very simple chart. You put a T, you put pros, and you put cons. And you exhaust your brain with every single pro you can think of, right down that chart. And then you exhaust your brain with every single con you could think of. And then find some people you trust, tell them what the idea is, and have them do the same thing. At the end of the day, you're going to have your initial scorecard on whether to buy or bail. If you've got a list of cons that's 3 times as long as your pros, I don't think you really need to go to the next step. That's bail. But if your list of pros really outnumbers your cons, now we've got something to really, really think of. So starting off with the Ben Franklin is a key piece. But you have to make a full assessment. You have to make a full assessment. So we need to know what it's going to cost. We need to know if we can raise the capital. We need to understand the cost of money. And then we need to know if there's a return on that investment. That's what BRISK'S buy and bail, or bail, is all about. Once you get to the point where you think you want to move forward, then you need to do what they call a SWOT analysis. You probably learned this in school, or you probably have done it in your business already. So SWOT is just an acronym, right? An acronym, SWOT, SWOT. It's strengths. What are the strengths of this opportunity? W, what are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities? And then what are the threats? So many people, they get into business and they don't think that there's competition out there. There is, and they're always gunning for you. You need to know what those threats are, and you need to try to anticipate them in advance. And if you do that, you're going to have a better chance of knowing whether to buy or bail on an opportunity. That will be key. Then you make a verdict. You're either going to move forward or you're going to bail. Now, the thing about buy or bail is you always can make a decision midway. That's why I called it buy or bail. You could start down a project, and if you're moving down a project and it's not working out as you anticipated, go back, reassess, look at your strengths, look at your weaknesses, look at your opportunities, look at your threats, go back to your Ben Franklin, and if that stuff isn't working the way you thought it would, it's time to bail. And yes, bailing mid-project can sometimes be a better decision than going all the way through. So I told you we were going to talk a lot about pivots. So let's put buy or bail into real corporate scenario. So one of the divisions of our company is a company called Chrysos Industries. Chrysos Industries is predominantly in the hemp business, fully vertical, and we'll talk about vertical on another show, but it's a fully vertical hemp operation. So with this whole situation going on out in the world today, and seeing people really struggling with things like hand sanitizer and toilet paper, for goodness sakes, all of these shortages. You know, we took a look at hand sanitizer, and we really have a heart for our healthcare workers, and we're like, geez, could we deliver hand sanitizer even though that wasn't our core competency as a business when we first started? That creating hand sanitizer in that division of our company is not in the original business plan. But what do you do when you're evaluating an opportunity? What are we doing at Chrysos that might be compatible? Do we have core competencies that would allow us to enter the hand sanitizer business in a quick way and produce a quality product? That was the SWOT analysis we had to face. That was the Ben Franklin we had to put together. And so what core competence did we have being in the extraction system, being in the extraction business? We have access to ethanol. That's part of what we do. So we have really good sourcing for ethanol. And what is one of the main ingredients in hand sanitizer? Ethanol. So that would be one of the number one things. If you don't have a source for ethanol, bail. That would be a bail, but we did. So then the next thing is packaging. Well, we have a full bottling line. That might be important. Just because we have ethanol and can buy the other ingredients, could we then package it? Could we take the ethanol and put it in a delivery system that was needed out in the marketplace? And of course, we had a bottling line. So we checked that box. What were some of the weaknesses? We didn't really have a line of ethanol or hand sanitizer products. We weren't known for hand sanitizer, right? We didn't have a market built in for hand sanitizer. But once again, strengths, weaknesses. Although that's a weakness, was it a model or a market that we could enter? And we felt that the demand was so great that it still made sense, although we didn't have a customer base, that we could jump into that business. And so that's exactly what we did. And so we launched into the hand sanitizer business. It was amazing. First of all, I always say, if you're going to be in business, you also should do things that are socially right. You should also be able to answer a time of need. I mean, I'm watching the nurses and the doctors on the front line that are under-equipped. And how passionate would we be if we could deliver hand sanitizer and help protect people in what is going on right now in a very, very difficult time? How passionate could you be to participate in a product that people desperately needed? And it didn't take a rocket scientist to go down through a retail shelf and see the shelves were empty of hand sanitizer. And so the demand was there. So we entered the business. We know a fair amount about approvals. We're going for GMP certification already. We know a little bit about getting FDA approval. And so we did it right and obtained an FDA approval for hand sanitizer. And here within our hemp operation now, we were able to take advantage of an opportunity that presented itself. But more importantly, we're able to feel good as a company that we're producing something that's really needed. And we had the core competencies already in our hands to do it. I'm watching other companies. Obviously, we're public, so we made that announcement. And then I watched a number of other companies also launching into the hand sanitizer business. And I really scratched my head. Did they have the core competency? Would it really be a good decision? Could they really build a business around it? We knew we could, and so we did. And we got the proper approvals from the FDA. And within 1 week of that approval, we started shipping hand sanitizer. And you know what? Our staff, our people, our employees feel so much better because of it. We feel good about what we're doing. And we're happy to be doing it. So the next program that I'm going to be talking about is BRISK'S, Bulls, and Bears. That's going to be next. BRISK'S, Bulls, and Bears. And we're going to talk about the public markets on BRISK'S, Bulls, and Bears. And we might even talk a little bit about that hand sanitizer again and what pivoting is, right? We pivoted to hand sanitizer. What effect did it have on us as a public company? So now we're going to talk about BRISK'S, Bulls, and Bears. Well, anyone that's even remotely looked at the stock market understand that there's the bear and the bull, right? The bear market, boo, hiss, stock market going down. The bull market, yes, stock market going up. And so that's going to be one of these segments. But we're not going to try to be a stock picker. I told you from the beginning of the show, this is really about connecting with you, trying to help you learn some things. Tune in and maybe avoid some pitfalls. We might try to pick a stock or two, but there's a bazillion people out there giving you all types of advice that you're struggling to know what to do with. Maybe if you understood the public markets a little bit more, you could do something with that advice on your own. So this segment really is about empowering you to understand a little bit more about public markets and what it all means. I ventured into the public markets for the first time, as crazy as this may sound, around 9/11, another rough time in our country. And we were putting together a tri-party merger with a company called Drew Pearson Marketing. Yep, the former Dallas Cowboy, if you're sports fans, if you ever heard of a Hail Mary pass in a big game, Drew Pearson was the guy that caught the Hail Mary and coined that phrase. And so we had a pretty nice business that we grew together. That business grew from 4 people, it was a startup, to 4,000 people over 18 years. And in the midst of that growth, we put together a merger of 3 companies. And when we're about to take it public, the U.S. markets were just not there for us. And we ended up taking that public on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So yes, there's public markets around the world. And I learned an awful lot about that. We talked about learning curve earlier as well, didn't we? And that in that learning curve, what we want to do is we want to be able to figure stuff out before we jump in with both feet. And so I was with that company, and I was one of the CEOs of one of the divisions, and collectively we got together and we brought in some talent to help us get public. And that tri-party merger came together. And we did everything I talked about in the earlier segment. We did the SWOT analysis, we did the Ben Franklin, we did everything we could do to say, could we be a strong public company? And with being a public company, how could we make ourselves better? And what would we do with the capital that could come from being public? Because frankly speaking, the only reason why you should ever become public is access to capital. It is hard to be public. There is immense scrutiny. That's why people invest in public companies, because of the oversight, because of the scrutiny, because it makes you better, because of third-party validation, because of all the auditors, because of the SEC, because of all of those triple-letter organizations that make us and keep public companies honest. So here we are. We took a company public on the Hong Kong. That's pretty cool. But what public markets exist here? If you're in a company right now and you think you're ready to be public, what are the public stock markets? Do we even know? Well, the first one is the OTC markets. A lot of people don't even know that the OTC market exists. The OTC market is the lower tier of the stock market, if you will. And they would hate to hear that. And we were an OTC company at one time. We were on the OTC. The OTC has 3 levels. Okay? The level you're aspiring to be is the OTCQX. That's when you start to behave like a fully reporting company, with a company that's being audited and a company that's doing quarterly filings. That's the OTC markets. And then there's, of course, everybody knows this, the New York Stock Exchange. But do you realize there's a couple of areas in the New York Stock Exchange as well? In the New York Stock Exchange, you've got a more micro-cap group of companies in the New York Stock Exchange. It actually was formerly a company. There might be a few people watching that are old enough to remember the American Stock Exchange. Well, that was bought by the New York Stock Exchange. And so there are various divisions in the New York. And then, of course, one that's near and dear to my heart is the NASDAQ. And the NASDAQ also has different levels for the size of your company. And what that means is the market cap. And I know I'm talking about terms that many of you that invest know what they are, but many of you don't. And this will be the things that we're going to cover on this show. We're going to talk about market cap and what it is and how it's calculated and why it matters and peer group market caps and all of those things we're going to learn here in Briskie Business in these coming weeks. I'm going to get you up to speed on what public markets are, and you can evaluate whether you should even consider becoming a public company and understanding the challenges of being one and maintaining being public. So one of the things that I wanted to really talk about today, and I like drawing from practical information, right? And I hope you don't mind that I draw from my own experiences week to week. I think that's one of the things that gives Briskie Business some real, what's the word? Validity, because it's stuff that's really happening. So from time to time, like I did in earlier segments, I'll bring in stuff that's actually happening with our own company and use them as real life examples that you'll be able to see that they're out there in the public markets and that these things are happening. Fiction is nice, but real life, I think, gains more credibility. So we're going to try to do a lot of that on this show. I talked about pivoting in a few segments. And one of the things I spoke about in the earlier segment was our pivot in one of our divisions into the hand sanitizer business, right? That was a pivot, something we hadn't done. We did an assessment, we made some decisions, and we decided that would be a good idea. Well, we're a public company. So once we made that decision, being a public company, one of the things you have to do is you have to be transparent. So public information has to go out in the press. So I thought this would be the perfect time in this public company setting, as we talk about Brisks, bulls, and bears, is that we could talk about short selling. What a perfect time, and here's why. We announced that Chrysos was in the hand sanitizer business. Something completely unexpected happened. Our stock went up considerably, and the volume in our stock went up considerably. It was really not expected in any way, shape, or form. These things happen for unexplained reasons as public companies. But one of the things I always keep up as a public company, and here's your educational piece, is short selling. Wow, what is short selling? Every time I meet someone, even people that have been around the markets, they don't understand short selling. Let me help you learn what short selling is. So long selling, simple. I buy a stock for a price and I want it to go up. That's it, I play it long. Short selling is so complicated. Why? It's not buying a stock, but playing it the other way. So you're selling something you don't have. That's complicated. We'll devote a whole segment on short selling. But here's the funny thing that can happen when you're in the public markets. The shorts, when they see a big spike come out. Our stock had 800,000 shares short the day before hand sanitizer was announced. And the next day was up to $1.8 million of short sellers. We'll learn about short sellers in the coming weeks. I'm now going to take us on to the next segment. Well, we're now going to talk about Brisks' best and brightest. And for me, that's my favorite segment. It's something I've always wanted to do once I started to really track in my career. I wanted to mentor people. I wanted to mentor young people and help them avoid the pitfalls of my experiences. Help them get to that wisdom point, maybe with making less mistakes, like we talked about earlier in the program. And that gets me really excited and really jazzed. I've had the opportunity to mentor my own children through their careers, and let me tell you, it is one of the most gratifying things you can do. And I hope I can bring you some wisdom and help you avoid some pitfalls. Wow, class of 2020. I can't even fathom what you must be feeling. Seriously? You start your senior year with the greatest job market in the history of the world, the greatest opportunity to earn, the greatest opportunity to overemploy yourselves, maybe even get paid more than you deserve, and you get hit with a global pandemic that's going to cause 20 million people to be unemployed? Geez, that is unbelievable and very difficult. And it's going to be more important than ever for the saying, for you to own it, the saying being, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. And it's tough right now. So you're really going to have to really dig in and suck it up. But I think the class of 2020, at the end of the day, the silver lining, you're going to be great leaders. You're going to be the great overcomers. You're going to have to work your way through this. And you started a year where it looked like it was going to be easy. What a great time. What a great time to overcome something. It's going to take a ton of work. It's not going to be easy. I'm going to back up a little bit. Yeah, I'm an old man. I graduated in 1983 from Fordham University, magna cum laude, by the way. Little pat on the back there. Worked really, really hard. I was lucky. I came out with a great, great job market in '83. It was unbelievable. I had something like 13 job offers when I graduated, and I could just pick whatever I wanted to do. And I picked what I was most passionate about, and that's how I started my career. On the other hand, my children, wow, they came out, which I would have said is one of the toughest job markets. My older daughter, Melissa, graduated Wake Forest University, one of the great institutions. And she comes out of school and there are no jobs. The job market is a mess. And she was looking for that opportunity, but there was none in her field. And I remember her coming to me and she could get a job. I think it was selling door-to-door cable channel stuff. And she said, should I take that job? I mean, obviously, people she was talking to Maybe people around her were saying, no, you can't take that. You graduated from Wake Forest. And I said, you take it, because these are the stepping stones that you need. So she took a job door to door. We lived in Texas, 100-degree temperatures, and she's learning how to stick her foot in a slammed door after 4 years of college and hundreds of thousands of dollars invested. Boy, you talk about character building, that makes you better. From there, an opportunity came up. I think it's so interesting and such an appropriate story. It was an opportunity to become a retail store manager at Sherwin-Williams, a paint company, for goodness sakes. How crazy. I'm telling you right now, coming out of Wake Forest, if the job market was great, I don't think she would have considered that. But door to door in 104 degrees, she was able to get into that management training program. And from there, that footprint led her into finance and then getting her master's. And right now, I'm proud to say that she's a senior person at Frito-Lay. She works for a Fortune 50, for God's sakes. That path never would have happened, or I don't believe would have happened the way it did, if not for the initial job in a tough, tough time. My other daughter, Danielle, I like to affectionately say, works for a Fortune 9 people. Talked about passion before, didn't we? They're both in the right place at the right time. I remember Danielle coming out of school. I remember one day she put out 63 resumes, 63, and no job offers. She ended up working in an area she didn't want to work in either. But guess what happened? She worked for a small company and got a very diverse background. And that diverse background ended up being perfect, although she hated it, ended up being perfect for the Fortune 9 that she works for. And then Chris, oh my God, 2 degrees in biotech, and he came out in that tough job market. And what happened to him? Same thing. He ended up working in an area he didn't want to work, but now he's a senior guy with the American Heart Association in brain health. Their start wasn't what they expected it to be. And let me tell you something. I know your start is not going to be what you expect it to be. But I will tell you something. I will tell you the same thing that I gave, the type of advice I gave to my own children. And I want to give it to you. Right now, it's going to be about hard work, determination, discipline, and mindset. Do not be defeated coming out on this. You're going to have to work 4 times harder. You're going to have to take opportunities, potentially, that you don't want to take, but take them. It'll put you on the path. It'll put you on the right path. And I think those paths are what make you successful. So, BRISK'S best and brightest, I'm talking to you. You went to school, you're coming out. We talked about earlier in the program, getting that pen out. What is your plan? What is your plan to be better? What is your plan to be better than the next person? Your competition has never been so fierce as it is in 2020. Just because unemployment is going to be so high, you got to beat it. You have to beat it. You know, one of my mentors that I studied, he's no longer alive, was Vince Lombardi. God, that guy was an incredible coach, right? A coach of the Green Bay Packers. He talked about defeating the impossible. That's what it was all about. You know, we have to learn to defeat the impossible. You're in an impossible situation. It would be easy to lay down, but you're not going to do that. You're going to pull out your pen. You're going to map out your strategy, and you're going to get your resume looking better than anyone else's. You're going to network in a way like you've never networked in your life, and you're going to land on your feet. You're going to probably take opportunities that maybe you weren't so keen on taking. But remember the story. Remember the story that I just told, that sometimes that path, although it just doesn't seem like it's the right path, it might ultimately be the right path for you. One thing I know for certain is you're going to build character, you're going to build a strong heart and incredible integrity. Do this once you get that job, wherever it is. Find a mentor in your company. There are people there. There are people there like me that want to help. There are people there that want to mentor you. There are people there that want your career to go to the moon. All of us understand the struggle that we are in right now in 2020. It would be easy to say you were dealt a bad hand. But let's see what's going to happen over the long haul. You're young. This is the time to build something big. This is the time to build character. This is the time for you. This is the time when we get down the road 5 years from now and look back, that many of you are going to be saying, as crazy as that was, as horrible as the coronavirus was, it taught me how to stand up. It taught me how to be strong, and it taught me how to overcome. And I am an overcomer now that can overcome anything. With that, this concludes this show of Briskie Business.